Welcome back, everybody, to the Spiritual Sisters podcast. I'm Nichole Christine.
I'm Gabrielle Celeste, and you are here for a very special episode where we have our dear friend Chelsea Jenkins on with us today, and we're going to pass it along to Miss Chelsea.
Hi, you guys. I am so excited to be here. This is honestly such an honor. Your guys' show is doing such great work and inviting so many new people into this space, and I cannot wait to talk further just about what you guys are doing and about what I do and how it all fits in together.
Chelsea, you're giving me chills.
I
can literally feel like my body has goosebumps. I've been getting that a lot lately on this show.
Oh, just because it's going in the right direction. But we're so excited to have you on, Chelsea. As you know, you are one of my favorite people, but one of my favorite readers. And we met back in our cohort last fall of the soul reading method. At the time, it's been rebranded it's been rebranded to the soul reading method. It was formerly called Soul Teacher. But I just felt like that was such a transitional and transformational time of our lives, and we were absolutely meant to meet. And I am now we're all friends because you've done a reading for my sister and you're going to do my birthday reading, but we wanted to have you on before so our audience could get to know you a little bit better and just know you before you blow up, because I I definitely see that in your future for sure.
I see it for you guys as well. So this is awesome. And I am truly honored. This whole journey has been mind blowing to begin with. Thinking about, isn't it crazy to think that, it was a little less than a year ago. What was it, like 9 months ago? No, more than that, 10 months. I don't know how long, but it wasn't that far. Oh my gosh, I'm just stumbling over my words. Let me just find my words real quick. But it wasn't that long ago that we signed up for Soul Teacher, and where I was at in my life is so drastically different after doing this work for so long, or what feels like for so long now. So I can't even imagine the trajectory a year from now, continuing to just stay on this path and dig in deeper and connect further. So yeah, it's been wild, and definitely I would say life-changing is is an easy way to put it.
Yeah, seriously.
I have a couple things before we jump in. One, Chelsea, I don't know if we've told you this, and I know we haven't talked about it on the podcast, so listeners are gonna learn. But we kind of like share friends, Gabby and I.
Yes, this is new to the audience, but this is very true.
Yeah, so a lot of times we have, I'll have a friend and then they become Gabby's friend and vice versa. So yeah, so even if you didn't want to be my friend, you're going to have to be my friend now because we share friends.
And with open arms, I am like, yes, girl.
and two, just out of curiosity, when you were in Soul Teacher, how did you refer to it as?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh gosh. That's an ongoing discussion.
Well, I referred to it as Soul Teacher when I was in the program, but afterwards I was like, low key, that was psychic school.
Yes.
I just came out of psychic school. That's what was really going down.
Yeah. Gabby kept calling it psychic school, and I was like, no, you can't call it psychic school. It sounds like crazy. And then what did they call it? I rebranded it to Intuition Academy.
But that's not what we were calling it, though. In between, there was I called it psychic school. You called it something else, and now it's Intuition Academy.
I don't remember.
I'm curious, Nichole. Okay? So psychic school, is that triggering for you? Like, is the word psychic a triggering word?
It is now.
Okay.
I think it always kind of has been, actually, because, right, they have such a negative connotation. So when you hear, I'm going to psychic school, it's like, I'm going to go learn how to be a psychic, which I don't know. The idea of it is just, I don't know.
Well, I get it, because growing up, I grew up with a psychic mom, and whenever I'd call her psychic, she had such an aversion to that. And I think it's stigmatized. And so she would always say, I'm not a psychic, I'm highly intuitive. Don't tell people I'm a psychic. And for me, that word was really triggering for a long time because of that as well. And so as I've started to develop my own gifts and abilities, I'm like, no, there's no way around it. I'm psychic though. So,
right.
I can now accept that part of me with a lot more love and compassion, because I actually feel so much more confidence in that space. But the word witch was like that for me too. And Gabby, you use that word a lot. And for me, but that's because you guys are just straight up witches, but like in the best way.
Yeah.
And I had to really come around to being okay with that, I guess, title as well. Like anything witchy or psychic was really triggering for a long time. But then I'm like, I only practice through Christ consciousness and with divine light. So those words can be fun and playful, but they don't carry that connotation that I think a lot of people think that they have.
Okay, so that's a great segue, Chels, because I'm so curious as to your background and how you got into this work. But we would love if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So in this space, I grew up, like I said, with a psychic mom. So it was very normal for me to do, she was doing Reiki when I was sick, and I didn't know that it was called Reiki. When I would come home from preschool with a stomach ache, I remember she had this giant rose quartz, and and she'd be like, "Okay, lay on my bed, and this crystal has magic properties, so just let it heal you, and if you still have a stomach ache in 30 minutes, then I'll give you some medicine." So from a very young age, I was already practicing a lot of these kind of spiritual holistic modalities, and that was just so normalized for me. And my mom would, oh, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but let me mute. Sorry.
It's okay.
Didn't mean to interrupt. But my mom really introduced this work to me at a very young age and normalized it for me. Pulling cards, staging the house, all that. And so as I grew up, I think I was kind of in like this protective bubble, because it wasn't until I got into college that I realized I had no control over people taking my energy or me just giving it away so freely. So I fell into some depression for a bit there. I felt really drained and exhausted for a lot, felt very off kilter. And I think I actually stepped away from the work because in a way I was already naturally living my life in a very intuitive way. But then in college, I was like, this is like me doing this is, I don't know. I kind of villainized it in a way, like subconsciously even. I didn't even realize that was what was going on. And so as I got older and I was in my 20s, I started finding my way back to this work again, but never on I was never like giving readings, but I would seek out readings. And every time I got a reading, I'd be like, I already knew this. It was very validating. It was very like a lot of confirmation in it. Which I think those kinds of readings are beautiful. You know, sometimes we go into a reading and we're not even looking for answers. We kind of just need the validation that what we feel intuitively is confirmed. And so, so my 20s, I kind of fell out of a spiral and in this world, like I found myself really feeling like I did everything that I possibly could within my own terms to get clarity on what I needed to do for my career and for my personal life. And I hit this wall, and I ended up working with plant medicine. I did a 2-week ayahuasca retreat in Peru, and that changed the game for me. That was like such a big wake up call in saying, Chelsea, like you are a spiritual person. This is something that you have to incorporate into your life. You feel so much better when you're meditating, when you're connecting, when you're really leading from the heart. And so I went on a journey to just kind of figure out what would that look like for me to be able to come back into the world and not feel like my energy was being taken. And it was a journey. And in 2019, my aunt passed away. And I wasn't very close with my aunt, but my uncle was devastated by it. And this weird thing started happening about 6 months after she passed, where I would wake up in the middle of the night, I'm dead from dead sleep, and I would smell the smell of cigarette smoke. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And then there was twice that I woke up out of my sleep because I heard my name being called. It was like Chelsea, and it was so loud. It was so clear. It was like somebody was in the room, but nobody was in the room. So this happened for about a year, about once a month or twice a month. And then finally one day I was talking to my uncle over Christmas, and I was like, hey, I think Darlene's been visiting me. And he was like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I feel her presence so strongly in the house still that sometimes I wonder if she moved that coffee cup or if it was me. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, and he was like, well, ask her what she wants. And I was like, I will, like, when it feels like it's right. Everybody that I talked to was like, you need to protect yourself. Like, that's lower vibrational energy. Like, all these things. I was like, I really don't feel threatened. I feel like she's visiting me for a reason. But then one day, I don't know why, I was talking to my friend. I remember it was July 3rd and we were celebrating my boyfriend's birthday and we're like at a party and I'm like had been drinking and I'm like hanging out and just like enjoying my life. And out of nowhere, I'm talking to my best friend and I stop and I look up to the right and I thought that I was speaking out loud, but apparently it was all in my head. But I had this full conversation with my aunt and I was like, Darlene, like, what do you want? Like, what do you need? Why are you here? And she told me, she was like, I feel guilty. And I was like, you shouldn't feel guilty. We've all forgiven you. Like, we love you. Like, you are an amazing person. It's time for you to move into the light. I could feel like if you don't move into the light soon, you're kind of going to get stuck here. And I said, and then I realized that she had more to say. And so I asked her, why do you feel guilty? And she said, because of her daughter. And that's a whole nother story and understandably why she would feel guilty. And I said, you did your best. Like, you were a great mom. You did your best. And it's time for you to move on. And you guys, I'm not even kidding you. Like, you can't make this shit up. Like, I went blind out of light, and from the bottom of my feet up through my body, through my crown, I felt this like whoosh of light, like a comet just going through. And it was the most peaceful, it was the most beautiful, like surreal, just, I mean, phenomenal, euphoric kind of feeling that I could ever explain. And I knew in that moment, I was like, I think that I just helped her move into the light. I had never done anything like that before. But that was really the start to my awakening. And the next day I called, I called my uncle because I was like, all right, 3 things going through my brain all at once. Number one, nobody's going to believe me because I've been drinking and they're going to be like, she's just drunk and she's like, has no idea what the hell she's talking about. Number two was, you know, like that was the most beautiful, profound experience I've ever had. And that was so sacred for me. Number three was, oh, honey, there is no going back now. The doors have opened. Your intuition is like, your third eye is like, bing, and it is time to step into this work. And it was just very clear. And so my uncle confirmed and validated everything I said. And he was like, you know, it's so weird because I actually woke up this morning feeling like she was gone. And I had been slowly feeling her energy kind of fade throughout the week. And this morning I was like, she's not here anymore. And I've talked to him since then and he's like, yeah, there's been no sign. And, you know, like, thank you for that. And so it was really healing and there was closure in that for him. It was very awakening for me. And then not long after that, one morning I woke up and I knew, I was like, I need mentorship because I was like a wild child. I was like going up to strangers being like, hey, did you know this? Blah, 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 blah. And they'd be like, who are you? And why do you know that about me? I was like,
yeah.
It was like the floodgates were open and I couldn't control it. And it was actually like a little scary to not have control over that because I was like, this is wildly inappropriate. Some of the, like, just the way that it was coming through and the things I would say to people without them asking, you know? And so I found mentorship with Nikki Novo and I took the course and that's where I met you, Gabby. And I remember you were the first person and it was like our very first practice circle. And you just like came in hot and we're like, yeah, I'm psychic and it's really nice to like finally be with other psychics. And like, because that word was so triggering for me for a long time, I was like, whoa, like she has so much confidence. Like, and I just immediately had this attraction because I was like, fuck yeah, like why aren't I embracing this part of me, you know? So that was the long and short of it all.
Oh, friend, I actually feel the same way about you. I'm like, I have so much genuine love and respect, and I'm just like, God, like she's so powerful and in her power and like of the light. And I think that's why people are so drawn to you and like want to be in your energy, you know, which is, you know, it's like a double-edged sword, especially being a psychic and knowing how energy works and like having to protect yourself. And then like, you know, topics like psychic attack that like we're now at a point where we're aware of and like having to work with. And I think that's can be kind of an aversion for people that are just starting out.
Totally. I always hear constantly people are like, now that I'm coming out of the closet, the psychic closet, and I'm telling people like this is what I'm doing, a lot of the response I get is like, oh my gosh, that scares me. And I wonder what it is that scares people about it. I'm trying to think back because I've never had that experience because my whole life this was so normalized. But I feel like I've talked to you about this, Nichole, about it kind of like scaring you. So I want to hear what you have to say about that.
I have so many thoughts just as I was listening to your story. So I want to jump back to those. But sorry, so what's the exact question? What's my thought on it being scary?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's scary because I did see something as a kid. So that's the scary part for me is not knowing what I knew what I was seeing, kind of, right? Like I knew that it wasn't a person of this world. So that was really scary. And Gabby and I were talking before you logged on about what it looks like to see energy, because Gabby was saying how she sees energy almost like as a heat, like when heat rises when it's like hot on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen that. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, if that's what it's going to look like to see, then maybe it's not so scary. But like I have seen
things
other than that. And that's the scary part. Like, you're not supposed to be here. This is my house. What are you doing here? Why are you here in the middle of the night? Right? That's the scary part.
Yeah.
It's like The Sixth Sense, right? The movie The Sixth Sense. Like, I loved that movie, but it scared the shit out of me. And I don't want to see that. That's what I'm like not okay with.
Yeah. Yeah. I see energy. I can understand what you're saying, because to have those very vivid examples, especially at a young age, that is absolutely terrifying, because there's nobody to help like coach you through that. There's no rule book or handbook to that either.
Friend, how do you see energy? I was talking about this with Nichole, and I was like, actually, I don't even know how you read. And I would also, so many questions. I would love to know. The people would love to know.
It's different. I've always been really attuned to physical spaces, and so I can feel energy in a space. I don't necessarily like see it, but I could actually point out where in the room I'm feeling denser energies or more stuck energies, versus lightness and airiness. In my boyfriend's apartment, I actually had to do a clearing because there was this like voodoo woman that was hanging out in a corner, and this girl like had like I'm like, how long have you been here? Because when I started really opening up to her and talking to her and asking her, so what I always do, and for anybody listening, I hope you find this helpful, because energy can feel scary, but it really doesn't have to be. Part of like something that I'm working on right now is teaching other people how to do protocols and protection around different kinds of energies, because I personally just recovered from a psychic attack, and it was like really, really disheartening and exhausting. But when it comes to energy, you can always just say transform into light or leave. So I invite you to transform into light, or you can leave, but you are not welcomed here. And I think that gives them the power that they're seeking to decide, Nichole's taking notes, to decide if they want to go into the light, if they need to move into the light, and if they want to move into the light, sure, hang out, chill, like, because they're not actually going to be an energy anymore. They're now going to be of like life force, and it actually adds to the space. Whereas, if they want to leave, they can go where they need to go. If they're of like really dark energy, then they are rebuked from the space. I mean, like, not even from the space, from this realm, and they need to go. And Gabby, I think you're the one who taught me this. Like, you were rebuked from this realm, and you go back to wherever you find healing. And so it's like there's 3 different ways to go about it, but giving them the option, and unless they're really, really dark, because I had. Not to scare anybody, but like I had this like demon child following me around during my psychic attack. It was like real creepy, and I'm super protected because I again like only work with the light, and I walk with Jesus in that way. But yeah, I had to send this demon child to like another realm and like shackle him up and be like, yo, you either have the option to transform into light, or you are going to stay here, do your healing, and I am like closing any kind of portal that you would come back in.
And you guys need to have eyes on me during this psychic school, Intuition Academy, because I already have one child and he's not a demon child, and I'm not ready for that.
Well, it's crazy like talking about that, because I remember in our reading, Chelsea, I was like, something's following you, like, and then because we're so blessed to have so many like wonderful and gifted friends in this work, in this area of work, I remember talking to one of them that we mutually know, and I was like, she has this on her, and she's like, holy shit, I can see that. Yeah. And a couple of our friends could see that, demon child who's been banished and taken care of at this point. But it's like, it's crazy shit that people, it's crazy shit in general, but like people don't think this is real. It's like, no, you guys, this is very real.
It is. And Nichole, I would say you are so protected because you're in the container right now. And I feel like that our mentor, Nikki, is so powerful beyond words. And she is just like pure light and love. And so she has so much compassion that she has bubbled that container for you guys. And so you're able to be as vulnerable as you need to be to do the work and explore your gifts. I think it's coming out of the container and learning, I think you mentioned this actually in one of your other episodes, kind of like being like baby giraffes learning to walk in a sense. And that's what it felt like coming out of the container, where it was like, okay, I have this new knowledge and this whole toolkit. Where do I go with it? And it took some time to kind of find that balance. And I also think that I don't want to, I guess for myself, I think maybe there was a little bit of arrogance thinking like, I'm so protected. I got this, like nothing can touch me. And then it was like, actually, you can't let off your protection. You can't let off your protocols to, like like the more that you ascend into the light, you are also at the same rate, your shadow is growing. And that's doesn't have to be scary. It's really beautiful actually, because it's giving you more opportunity to learn more about yourself and grow and evolve. But that's why they say it's like once you start the work, it never ends, because just because you're ascending one way doesn't mean that the other side's not ascending at the same exact rate. So yeah, that was very eye-opening for me. And I've come out on the other side, guys, and I feel good.
So you answered a couple questions that we had just as you were going through your story. One of them that I wanted to know, though, was before you journey down this path and are doing your business, and we want to hear about your business, what were you going to do for work? What was going to be your career?
I was a drama major and a psych major in college, so I was a double. And I actually graduated and started working in TV casting. So I was working in the entertainment business for a few years. And I had set these like high goals for myself. And I was like, I'm going to be like one of the youngest producers at 24 and blah, 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 and make this much money. And I hit a lot of those markers and was so unfulfilled. And I remember continuing the work for another 2 years and just feeling like my body physically was like, had such an aversion. I had 7 sinus infections in a year. I was always fatigued. Like I took so many antibiotics that year without knowing like the repercussions of gut health. And it just became this like really bad spiral. And I kept thinking like, maybe my apartment has mold. Maybe I'm like, I don't know. I was looking for all these I got an allergy test. Like I did all these external, things thinking that it was something environmental, when really it was like, God and the universe telling me you're out of alignment. You're not on path for your purpose. And so I met with a friend who I knew from college, who was really successful in the online blogging and coaching business. And so I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. And I feel like I spent the last 5 or 6 years, everything I learned from the business perspective, I'm laughing because now I'm like, oh, now I can just go. Now that I know what my business is, which is me doing this work, it's doing readings, it's helping people, discover their intuition and strengthen their intuition. Now it's time to go. Now it's time to take all that and go. So I also, by the way, own totally off key, but I own my own property management company for short-term rentals. So Airbnbs and Verbos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what is like, that's what I do day to day right now, as I'm building out this business. And I'm like, it's funny because I'm like, that's where I make my money so that I can build my real business, which is this. That's the fake business, even though that one's like the one that's registered and everything.
I feel like that's kind of how it is, right? We have to have our 9 to 5 to be able to eventually, to be able to eventually move over and have this be the gig, right? Like the main thing, whatever that's going to look like, and it's going to look different for everybody.
Yeah.
So going back, so I wonder, tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you said, you kind of always, like you grew up with this, right? Your mom was a psychic. You talked about her doing like magic and medicine and her cards. And it's so funny when you said that, because sometimes when I'm going to do my meditation, I'll sit down and I'll pull out my cards, and my son will sometimes walk in and he's like, "Are you playing a game?" I'm like, "No." And he's just looking at the cards and he's like, "Ooh, pretty." And he's just like so interested, but he doesn't know what anything is. But anyway, so something that you just kind of grew up with. So was it like the visits from your aunt that kind of awoke you to the knowing that, oh, I actually have abilities, I actually have a gift? Or what was there maybe an inkling before that happened? Like, when would you say you knew, like, I can do this?
I think I've known my entire life, but I think it was really lacking the confidence of accepting the title of that. I wasn't really scared of what people would think necessarily. It was just more like I was so scared of, I just really felt like the work came with so much responsibility to
Yeah.
have these gifts. It felt like, gosh, you know, I owe it, like, I don't know. It just felt like it was going to be really heavy to do, and the responsibility of it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And as I've moved through it, I don't feel that way anymore. It's actually so liberating and so exciting and so amazing and a lot and rejuvenating. But yeah, I think my aunt passing and visiting me and helping her move into the light, that was like the marker in which I was like, I have to do something about this now. This is the turning point.
And we were speaking the other day because before you came on, I wanted to have a reading because Gabby like really hyped you up, right? She's like, she's the best.
Amazing.
I was
she
like,
is amazing.
No, right. So I was like, I need to experience this. I need to know what this is about. And I loved it. And we were talking about just different things. And you mentioned that experience. And I told you like that happened to me probably within this last year. I remember I told you, Gabby, I think the day it happened.
But I didn't put the two and two together because Chelsea told me this story back in November, and I obviously knew how, you know, that whole experience with the light had happened for you. But I just love the synchronicity of like you aligning with a reader that's like vibing at the same vibration. And it's like, oh, like they were meant to meet, kind of. That's what passed through my mind when you said that.
Well, and it's really interesting because I don't think it, in the way for you it was, you know, that you helped your aunt kind of like move into the light. I didn't understand it that way for me. So I wonder if people can have similar experiences for different purposes. Like I almost felt like for me it was a guide kind of visiting me versus me helping somebody move into the light, because I mean I've had a couple people pass. And I want to say that happened before my grandma passed, and my grandpa had already passed, you know, almost a decade or more than a decade maybe. So I don't think it was maybe necessarily that, but more of like, hey, we're here type of situation.
No, definitely. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this with everybody, but when I was giving you your reading, you know, I really see you being somebody that a lot of spirits are going to come to because yeah, I'm like, she's a medium, and I'm like, you're going to have clairaudience come in. You're going to have a lot of, and clairaudience for anybody that's listening that doesn't know is you can hear, you can actually hear. So there's all the different clairs, but clairvoyance is sight. You get visions. I feel like for you, it's going to be clairaudience, and then yeah, there's gonna be a lot of mediumship and like channeling spiritual work. And I know some of it sounds scary right now, but I feel like I'm really strong in that.
It sounds so really fucking scary.
Cool. No, it's so cool.
Like, the two opposites, right? This is so cool. This is so fucking scary. Yeah, but let's like merge in the middle.
I think it's because it's really just about the protections and protocols, and then once you feel confident in those, you're going to be able to move into this work and like really play with it and have fun with it. You know.
I feel like I need a roadmap, right?
That is such a masculine thing to say, Nick.
No, I know, but that's how I operate, right? I
know.
I'm like, I need a roadmap. This is what to say. This is how to have these protections in place. This is when to do it, right? And that way it's like, okay, because then I'll get so freaked out if I don't have those things in place that like nothing will come on board, right? Like I'll just shut it down. So Gabby, get on that for me. Thanks.
Do you see how this goes, Chelsea? Do you see this younger sister, older sister relationship?
Like, queen of protections over here, so I'm like, she's not wrong.
I mean, it's when you have negative experiences. I can understand it, Nick. Like you do want to be careful with it, but right. I also think like those are such powerful skill sets to have. Like the beauty that's going to come of it, especially when you have your clients and like helping these people, like. there's no greater feeling knowing that you're supporting someone in a way that not many others can.
Right. Yeah. I almost feel like it'll be a nice, maybe smooth transition from therapy to that type of work when that time comes, because and I might be wrong, right? I almost think of it as kind of doing something similar, but on a shorter term scale versus with therapy, right? Sometimes we're working together for months and years, whereas, like, this might be a couple sessions or even one, right? And so it's like, okay, like I got that. And now we can like move on to the next and like actually seeing that. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But Chelsea, tell us about your business and just what you do. And
I'm just getting it started. And I think by the time that this episode comes out, I'm about to launch my own podcast as well called Transcendent Transparency. Thank you. I'm so excited because I'm long-winded. I feel like a podcast is going to be good for somebody like me. But yeah, it's an opportunity for me to talk more about my own experiences and kind of share some of the wisdom that I have gained in this journey and the lessons that I've learned or gone through, both the good, the bad, the ugly. And then I also am doing readings right now. And I didn't mention this, but I am a certified certified financial coach. And so I was focusing on money for a long time and the energy of money and people's relationship to money. So I do offer money readings, but I don't feel as called right now to really pursue like that niche specifically. I'm really having a good time just doing general readings for people because my strengths are, I joke that I'm textbook psychic because my strengths are really in like timelines and premonitions. And so in kind of like future predictions essentially. So right now I'm doing readings and my availability is open to do those. I'm doing a couple a week and then I'm working on the podcast and getting that going. And really why I'm doing all this, why I'm focusing on readings at the moment is because I'm trying to tap into collectively what people really need from me at the moment. So what offerings am I going to create that are really going to be helpful? And it's funny that we're talking about protections and protocols because I am creating a workshop around that specifically. Because after going through my psychic attack, I was like, no, there's different protocols and protections for like to protect yourself from psychic attack versus demonic entities versus just general entities and energies. And so I think breaking those down and creating those guidelines for people, a lot of people have been reaching out to me about it. And so I'm like, okay, noted. Like that's something I can share with people. This is knowledge that I have that can help, and strengthen because like I said, the more that you move into the light, the stronger your protection has to get. And the more comfortable you have to be exploring the shadow. That's also part of the work. So yeah, so I'm kind of surveying the audience and seeing like, what is like, spirit calling me to do at the moment. So one step
and
at a time.
can you share again what the name of the podcast was? Because I think we were yaying over your name.
Yeah, it's going to be called Transcendent Transparency.
Okay,
It's a mouthful.
that.
I know that.
I was thinking in my head, I was like, I wonder what the numerology is for that. I need to check.
You know what? I think we looked it up once, and I can't remember what it is, but
it's going to be good though. It's success in my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, this is how people are going to find her, and one of the ways that you're going to blow up because I obviously have read your energy and I see that coming. I remember literally sitting in like in our cohort, and I like saw a couple of the girls, and I was like. And I think I even said it. I was like, Chelsea, you're going to be famous. I'm like, I'm so happy you guys are my friends.
I'm like,
don't forget about us little people when you're.
Oh no, y'all are right there with me. I've said the same thing about Cabby, and I feel like with this podcast, I just see such good things. I was saying to you, Nichole, in the reading that I feel like this podcast is so special because you were saying how, you can't understand how you have this pull and attraction towards some of the darker things, but yet you're so in the light, and that can be kind of hard. And I'm like, this podcast is an invitation for so many people that feel that way to really feel like they can explore that and see how it's like the work isn't in darkness.
Right. And it doesn't have to be all this or all that, right? It doesn't have to be if you're into dark stuff, then you can only be into dark stuff. Or if you're into the light, you can only be into that. It's like, well, where's the balance, right? Like, I don't have any Libra in me, but where's the balance of the good, or, not even the good, but like the dark and the light, and kind of playing around with that.
Totally. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit, just so that way when it's ready to go, people know what the podcast is going to be about? And
yeah, so transcendent transparency. I looked up the definitions of the two words, and I function from a place of total transparency in my life, and I believe in the power of that. And when I looked up the definition of transparency, it was like letting the light, like how the light moves through something, the level of which, and I feel like delivering all of my life messages. I've gone through a lot of grief in the last year. My boyfriend's mom passed away, unfortunately. So, there's going to be episodes talking about grief and growth and grace. And I'm going to have episodes talking about how, yes, I'm psychic, but so are you, because I truly believe that everyone has intuition and it's just a muscle that we have to strengthen. I will talk about, the first episode is inspired by a letter that I wrote to my older self 10 years ago, and I found it 10 years later, coincidentally.
Oh
yeah. And I was like, damn, the wisdom that this girl had like 10 years ago, like I'm learning from my younger self in a way. So it's really just about life, and it's about navigating life and me getting through my life and sharing really from the spiritual lens, but also like taking like the drama out of the spirituality piece, because I feel like so many people are like so woo woo, which is great, but I'm like, does it have to be that serious? Can it just be like can we bring like a little bit more levity and fun to it, So so the podcast is really just going to be about life overall.
that sounds really cool. It would be really cool also when it gets going to have different people and all of their different stories, because I'm sure even just when you guys were in Soul Teacher, all the different stories and how people got to where they're at, and then just people that we meet in everyday regular life.
Totally. I actually like, this is the podcast. It's so funny because yes, it's business, but it's so much more like, I don't know, like my soul just feels like this is going to be therapy for me, as well as really like intentionally hoping to connect with people and make people feel heard, seen, supported in ways, sharing my unique perspective. But as far as guests and stuff go, it's like, I definitely just want to call in my closest people and just have these honest conversations, because I'm very fortunate that I have so many people in my life that are able to speak with an open heart and so transparently. So definitely would love to have you guys on at some point.
yeah.
I'll have my mom. I can't wait to have my mom on and talk about all of, this experience and how it's really bringing us even closer, even though we were extremely close. And I'll have Jason on talking about, how we've navigated as a couple going through grief, and also just like, poor guy. I'm like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm psychic,
Can I ask you what that conversation was like? Because I dropped that on my husband about maybe like a month ago. I hadn't even told him I was doing a podcast, and I was like, oh shit, I probably should have told him I was doing a podcast first and kind of let him get comfortable with that idea. And then I was like, oh, by the way, I think I'm I think I'm connecting with spirits. And he was just like, it was 10 o'clock at night, and he's like, this is a lot to process. Poor guy. So what was it like for your partner?
It was the same as it was with everybody else in my life. He was just not surprised. He was like, yeah, I think I already knew that, and I was like, really? Like, everybody knew it. I remember talking to my best friends from college. They're two dudes that were like in a frat, like kind of bro-y. And I saw them over Thanksgiving, and I was telling them, I was like, they're like, yeah, so now you're doing what? What are you working at? Like, you're working with a spiritual mentor, what? And I was like, yeah, guys, I'm psychic. I do readings now for people. They were like, explain this a little more. And I told them, and I remember one of them was like, he just looked at me, and his response was, that is so weird. And then he took a beat and was like, but it makes sense for you. Yeah, like that makes sense. And I just started laughing because I was like, I definitely was expecting some sort of pushback, but actually it's been so well received. And I think because because in, you know, these formative years, have lived very intentionally and mindfully. So it wasn't too much of a shock. And I know that that's not the story for everybody, but when it came to Jason, he's so amazing in the way that he just holds space for me to be on my journey, and I do the same for him. And so I haven't given him a reading. I haven't like I've always intuitively tapped into his energy, so like I always know what's up, but he's been very respectful about it. And I think because he's met my mom too, so it's like once you meet my mom, you're like
I can't wait to hear the stories about your mom.
I can't wait to meet her.
I'm like, you guys should actually bring her on the pod, because he is like an OG, was going through, I mean, when we think about historically speaking, we are very fortunate to live in a time where we can openly talk about these things. And yes, it's still stigmatized to some degree, but that's really what I believe is just more lack of education than it is actual like fear. Whereas before, as y'all know, like there was the Salem witch trials, and there's like so much witch wounding that's been going on. And when with my mom, I mean, she has stories for days, and I have stories about her for days, because just witnessing her being, I mean, people like we would get like telemarketers calling, and my mom they would like accidentally call her. Like I remember this one time, this telemarketer called, my mom answered the phone, and she was like, you know what? I just need to tell you that like whatever you're going through, like blah blah blah, like whatever it was, she like give like a mini reading for this person. This telemarketer saved our phone number and started calling my mom back. Like, and she was like, I'm like, who is this person?
Oh my God.
And I would come home from high school, and I would have friends like sitting at the kitchen table talking to my mom before I even got there. I was like, oh, I didn't know you were hanging out today. And she's like, oh, or like I'd have friends be like, no, I'm just need to talk to your mom really quickly. I'm like, okay.
I was listening to this podcast recently. They're hilarious, and I hope one day when we get bigger and big enough, we can join with them. They're called Common Mystics, and they're hilarious. They're two sisters that they take like road trips around whatever area they're in to try to find a story that they don't know about, and then they do the research and they find the story. So they just kind of get like intuitively pulled, to this direction, and they find something. But they were talking about how they kind of became them, and stories with like their grandma and their mom. And I was telling Gabby, their mom was an astrologist. And they said their mom, and this was like right in the 70s, 80s, like before there was computers and programs. And they were saying how their mom used to have all of her books and everything like all over the floor. And she was doing everything by hand. And they were talking about this movie, and it was like a movie about Nostradamus, and Nostradamus had predicted this event that was happening. And the mom was like, okay, when is it? And the girl was like, oh, I see it in like, September of like 20 or September of 2000. And the mom's like, I don't know, I'm seeing September of 2001. And the mom almost like, based on whatever she was doing with all of her astrology stuff, was kind of picking up on like 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
Wild.
Yeah, it was such a crazy story. Did you listen to the episode,
No,
Gabby?
I
sent it to you.
I know I haven't.
You never fucking listen to anything I tell you to listen to.
I am low on energy. No, I'm going to, because I'm manifesting being on that podcast at some point. But that's crazy, because to do that shit by hand, I think about it all the time. I'm like, no fucking way. Like,
well, that's what they were saying.
I don't know how to do this by computer. I only know how to do it by computer.
You guys, I wanted to show you this, because as you were saying that, my mom had our birth charts drawn up. This is actually a printed one, but she had our birth charts drawn up and hand done.
So cool.
Yeah. So I was like laughing. That's why I was on my phone, because I was like, I have to find the picture of it. She just sent it to me recently. It was like, by the way, I had this drawn up for you, like when you were born. My sisters and I all have it. It was a male astrologer that she spoke really, really highly of. Unfortunately, he's passed, but I mean, it was also 33 years ago. So
yeah.
But yeah, that is wild. And that is so truly, that is a art form in its own right.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'll send you the episode too. It was a short episode. It was only like 30 minutes.
P.S. Just because I gotta like say something back, Nichole sent me 2 readings yesterday and a podcast episode to edit and a podcast episode to listen to. So I will get to it, sister. But no, it sounds like a great episode. The way
I
that
sent
you
you
hyped
the
it up.
podcast episode over the weekend.
No, this was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Guys, just for those out there, she sends me something to do every single day, and yeah, bossy Cancer over here. But I can't really talk shit because I'm the same way. So
Exactly.
it's all love.
Okay, so Chelsea, like as far as the future goes, and this is kind of a funny question because I know for me at some point I had this thought of, well, psychics should just know, right? Like I don't need to tell them this; they should just know, or can't they tell their own future? And now I understand it doesn't work that way. So,
P.S. I fucking love this question because we were just talking about this. So I'm glad you asked this, Nichole. Me and Chelsea were talking about this.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So as far as like your future plans, so like with your business and your podcast, well, you have 2 businesses. So just those things, like what would you like to be doing with all of those things that you have in play in a year? And like, so what might that look like then? And then what might that look like 5 years from now?
Yeah, so in a year, as far as my like Airbnb business goes, I have a assistant that I'm bringing on. She's actually starting this weekend, and I cannot wait to have her. I love her dearly, and my plan is to I'm starting her for a couple days, and in a year from now, I want her to like mainly be running things and me just overseeing. And the reason for that is because with this business, I'm in my spiritual business, I talk to it a lot. So I connect with its energy and I ask its questions because I truly feel like businesses are kind of like soul babies and they need to be nurtured. They need to, like you're raising a child, right? But it's like, it's interesting because it's outside of me, but it's also so much within me. My business feels like it's coming out of the womb. It's being birthed at the moment. And so how am I going to raise it? And for me, my approach to business is very intuitive, where it's just continually talking to it and seeing what feels good, what do we need, and what are we struggling with, and how do we heal those parts of us. And so, a year from now, I see myself running. I see myself having a few different products out, meaning online courses or potentially doing a coaching container. And I really want to move into public speaking spaces. So I really want to start going and like this it's so interesting. Like I see so many different paths. It's just kind of like what's going to come first. So I know that that's not like a really direct way of giving you a vision of what's going to happen, but I think it's because for the first time, I'm not approaching business with the masculine. I'm really allowing it to be free form and flowing because when I tap into my own energy, like I am very much a free spirit and I don't do well with confinement. And so of course I have structure, like you can find freedom in structure and I'm learning that, but it's kind of more of, I think I'd be doing myself a disservice by like setting markers that might not be aligned with what people need or what I need,
Yeah.
Okay. As you were saying that, I was thinking, Gabby, isn't there, and I don't know if it's up and running yet, but someone's doing Akashic records for businesses, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I saw recently for a couple of our friends. So yeah, why do you ask? I see the wheels turning.
Well, no, just when Chelsea was talking about her business and just, how it might unfold, I was just kind of wondering if that might be something that would
look
be
into.
I wonder if we're thinking of the same reader because I have had a business reading from one of our dear friends that was in the container that is highly, highly talented. And
it's someone else, right?
It's someone, but I actually think her and Nichole would vibe really well just because of their backgrounds. And so definitely want to introduce them at some point. But no, this is actually someone else. But I was thinking, Nick, I didn't even put the 2 and 2 together until you said that. That makes sense.
Ooh, I'm okay. I definitely want the intro. So we will side chat about that because I am into it. I think a lot of people, I've worked with different like business coaches and they're like, we don't really know what to do with you because
yeah, that's true.
Because I'm like, I think that I should just see how things feel. And they're like, okay, but you need to have things in place. And I'm like, but I do have certain systems in place for sure. Like I have the softwares and the whatever in place, but like, why does it have to, like, I think being an entrepreneur is giving yourself the freedom to create the business that you want. And for me, I'm like, my business just tells me what it needs. And also, I gotta say, it's very frustrating for a lot of people because I'm a Taurus, I'm a projector. And also, I think, what was it? One of our friends just posted about in human design, your Jupiter is like your magnetism.
Oh, our Australian friend. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And mine is like all about patience. Like I naturally have patience to not do something until I feel like it's the right time to do it. And that's so, I'm like, so I just think I think other people look at me and they're like, you're so slow moving. And I'm like, I'm really intentional. Like,
yeah, sounds like my husband. I tell him he has no sense of urgency for anything because he will research the shit out of anything and everything and not do something until he feels like it's the right time. Where I'm like, well, I would have done that 3 months ago. Like, why are you like?
I definitely need to call in people on like have a team of fire starters for me because of that. But I also am like, but it's so funny because all my roles have always been that I'm the fire starter for other people. So it's weird how that plays out.
You know what I was thinking too, as you said that, because I was thinking about your big three before we came on, and I was like, oh, that makes sense that she's a medium, because anytime I see someone that has heavy earth placements in their big three, like mediumship comes pretty naturally to them, and I feel like that's totally the case for you. But Nicole's husband's a Capricorn sun and you're a Capricorn moon. And I was like, oh, and you're a double earth sign. So I was like, maybe that's why, like, there's a little bit slowness, but it's actually being intentional behind it,
Yeah, yep. And I think that's misinterpreted. And so I've actually had to like take a step back and be like, all right, I've loved working with so many people, but it's time for me to just like go inward and not have other people's energy in my business.
Yeah.
Just temporarily and just for now until I feel, but it's like, it's so funny because the moment I did that, then all of a sudden I got so much clarity on like what needs to happen and how to move forward. So
I love that.
Yeah. And I've been told by like all of my business mentors, like, I think you're supposed to break the rules and just do things in your own way. And it's just now that I'm doing that, it finally feels good for me. And I want to encourage that for other people. And I hope that, I hope that my journey pans out with a level of quote unquote success so that I can help other people do that for themselves as well. Because I really believe that like, the reason I started my business Debt Free Spirited when I was doing financial coaching was because I was like, I want people to use money as a tool to live the most fulfilled and aligned life. Now I'm doing the same thing just without the money piece and trying to help people just figure out, like what is the best, way forward for them and what is that going to look like? And so same, but different,
Yeah. Okay. Well, was that kind of then maybe the same answer for 5 years? Like it's just, we're going to kind of let it.
In 5 years, all I know is that I want a treehouse office in my backyard. So I want my office to be in a tree and I want to like not climb up that tree, but I have stairs to get to my office every day. So I'm like out in nature. I would love to be a mom in 5 years. I would love to be married to Jason and I would love to, have a business. I would love to be public speaking, like, just going around the world, doing like a world tour, speaking about what I feel like is going to be the most healing for the collective at the time.
I love that.
Jason, did you hear that? Did you hear that she wants to be married in 5 years?
I want to be married in like 2 years, actually.
Oh, she wants to be married in 2 years.
Okay, so we're calling
Jason?
Yeah. We're calling in you guys getting on that like Travel Sisters podcast.
Yeah.
What was it called?
Common Mystics.
Common Mystics.
Okay, you guys are going to be on Common Mystics and I'm going to be married to Jason.
To Jason, we got to clarify.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to make it happen. We're going to get all of our witchy vibes and do it.
Yes.
Okay. So where can people find you if they're interested in booking with you? And we'll put all the information too in the show notes, but share all of
all my
places.
Yeah. So Instagram and my website are the same. They're chelseajenkins.love. And so at chelseajenkins.love and chelseajenkins.love is my website. And my podcast is Transcendent Transparency. So you should be able to find me on all of the streaming in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and when that's ready to go, we'll link that too.
Yeah.
We'll have everything out. Any last things you want to leave us with?
Just thank you so much. And this has been so
Thank you.
fun. Yeah. I'm like, I could literally talk for hours about, I like, there's certain things that we hit on and I'm like, oh, I want to expand on that, but we will save that for another day, another time.
We'll save that for your podcast.
Yes, we will.
I just had an idea. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we're done recording.
Okay. P.S. Thank you for doing my birthday reading and for reading Nichole. And I'm so excited. And that is a treat that we can share at this point. It's still on the down low because like we're going to just drop it on the week of our birthday. But we're super grateful.
I also actually, on that note, want to make a quick mention because it's so funny. I just gave you a reading on Monday, Nichole, so 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. And something with my readings, I'm just disclaimer, because a lot of it is more future focused. It's like I'm not even going to get feedback from you for like another like 3 to 6 months.
Year, right?
Yeah, or a year. So for anybody that is interested potentially in doing a reading with me, like I always want to make it very clear that a lot of these messages sometimes won't land on your heart until a little bit further down the road. And that's because things are aligning and getting in place for you to have these experiences.
Oh, I want to add to that because I actually had a reading with you at the beginning of the year and you're like, this, and this is going to happen, right? Yeah. In these months. And you guys, it hit to the month. You had said, I think you're going to bring someone on in April. And I don't think I've told you this yet, but I actually found someone to bring on last week. And that's happening.
I've been waiting for you to tell me that. I'm like, this girl is going to need somebody. And like, she's getting to that point. And like, I'm so happy to hear it.
Yeah. It was actually Nicole's idea of who we're bringing on, which we're not going to share just yet. But yeah.
I'm over here headhunting for people. Sorry, there was one more thing I was going to add. What was it? Oh, I think just as a general statement for people that do get readings, I think it's really important for them to, one, understand that some of it might not land, but two, when it does, if you can give that feedback to the person, I think that's really helpful because especially with like the future stuff, right? Future timelines, like, again, this isn't happening tomorrow. And sometimes people have said, well, they told me this was going to happen and it hasn't happened. Well, when did you have your reading? Well, like 2 weeks ago, right? But it's not for 2 weeks out, right? This is sometimes like years out. And so you have to be patient. But I think getting that feedback is really helpful for the reader. Not even because they like need the validation, but I think it's just nice to know like, oh, okay, good. That did land for that person. So if you can give back to whoever is doing your reading, give them that. Like that would be such a gift, I think.
1000%. And I also, on that note too, feel like it's really good relationship building because if you're touching base with your reader and you're letting them know, something landed, it's letting your reader know, okay, so then this is the path that they're on. So if you work with them in the future, there is, there's this common misconception that you shouldn't give your reader any information about yourself leading up, that they should. And I am so guilty of going into readings and being like, prove it. But you get so much more out of a reading the more that you can give your reader up front, because they can take something and instead of spending that hour, getting one level down, they can get like 3 or 4 levels down.
Yeah, right.
So, that's just another thing for anybody listening is don't be afraid to give information away. It's not saying that the reader doesn't know what they're talking about. It's really going to benefit you in the end. And then also, the feedback part is really special for both ends.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chelsea, for coming. We'll have all your information ready to go when this episode is released. If you guys want to get in touch with us, you can do so via email at
thespiritualsisterspodcast@gmail.com.
You can find us on Instagram at
The Spiritual Sisters Podcast.
You can find Gabrielle on Instagram
at Agua Astrology.
You can find me on Instagram
at Mom Wifey Therapist.
And is there one more? Oh, and if you want to book a reading with Gabrielle, you can do so at
www.aguaastrology.com.
There's so many things to remember.
I know. And then we'll have all of Chelsea's information in the show notes, as we've said. And thank you, friend. Love you.
I love you.
Definitely the first time, but not the last that we'll have you on, I'm sure.
Sure. And vice versa for me.
For sure. Okay, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.